Okay, welcome everyone to SERx. We're in room 2, part 1, and today the host for the first session is Dave. So, Dave, do you want to welcome our first clinician?
Well, good morning, all in the Southeast region and the Southeast Region Convention. I'm Dave Berman. Glad to be here this morning. Our first clinician this morning is an N-scale bend tracker, member of the Palmetto Division, developer on engine driver and JMRI projects, and the provider of an RPI-JMRI ready-to-run image for the Raspberry Pi. He enjoys dispatching on other people's layouts, just getting started in ops on his small home layout. For this first clinic this morning, let's welcome Steve Todd.
Hi, good morning. Good to see everybody or hear everybody this morning. Appreciate the intro there, Dave. I have a lot to cover in a few minutes, so I'm going to kind of skip some of the pleasantries and jokes and that sort of thing. I'm going to jump straight into sharing my screen. And let me do this and click there. And I believe that I can do this. Control F5. Okay, does that look good, Dave? Can you see that?
Looks good to me when we get Brad to share.
Okay. Okay. So again, my clinic title is Basic JMRI Operations with No Paper. My name's Steve Todd. That link is where the clinic is located. If you have some trouble seeing these screens, maybe I put the text a little small. That thing in the right-hand corner, you're not supposed to be able to read it yet. But if you can not see that, there's the link. It's mctodd.com/clinic.pdf. Just download it and watch it on your own computer. Kind of follow along if you'd like. All right, my goal today is starting from nothing. I want to show how to set up a simple railroad operations on your layout using JMRI. Even if you've never done it before with JMRI, maybe even if you've never done operations at all in any situation. And I'm going to include, by the end of it, the use of mobile devices to replace all the printed stuff, the switch lists, the car cards, the things you might be familiar with that other operations have printed out. I'm not going to do the printing out at my layout, so I'm going to kind of show you how that works. Okay, let's get started. Number one thing that I want to encourage you is don't wait. If you're thinking about operations, I thought about it for a long time. I had operations, I'd gone to other locations and saw some great layouts and said, man, this is great. I love doing this operations, but I'm going to wait until my layout's bigger. I'm going to wait until I have more industries in an expansion area that I was thinking about doing. Don't do that. Just let me encourage you not to wait, because if you wait until you're completely ready, you'll never get there. You'll just keep putting it off. So one day I decided, let's just go do this thing. I watched a clinic, an NMRA clinic that's available on the NMRA website by John Stewart. Go watch that if you want to, and very informative. He's a lot more entertaining than I am. But one of the things he said as well is start small, get started, because you're going to make mistakes. No matter what you do, you're gonna make errors. So don't try to wait until you understand it all. Some people advise, oh, read the manual 3 or 4 times. That doesn't work for me. It's better for me to go get started. The nice thing about doing it with the computer is there's nothing lost if you do it wrong. Go back and change it and do it again. It's not like you're spending money on this. This is free. These tools I'm showing you are all free. You will learn as you go through them. You will get better as you go around. And again, as I've said, and I'm going to emphasize this, start very small. Add just a few cars in 1 yard. If you have multiple yards, just add a few cars and a couple of industries. That way there's less to redo if you decide, oh, I'd rather do it this way, or I'd rather put these descriptions in. You will have less to undo if you start small and give it a try. I literally started with 4 cars and 2 locations, and 3 locations, 2 industries in 1 yard, and that's what I'd recommend that you do if at all possible. So, okay, the basics of things. I'm assuming you have JMRI installed. I'm not going to cover that in any way. If you don't have JMRI installed, there's some other videos to go find about that. JMRI.org is a good place to look. Some people ask me, is Panel Pro or Decoder Pro, which should I use? They're the same program. The only difference is some of the screens that you see at the beginning. So Don't worry about which one that you have. Both of them will do the steps I'm looking at. Do I need a live connection to my layout? No, you can use a simulated connection. I'm not going to discuss much about that, but just understand that this operation stuff does not, at the level I'm doing it, level I'm showing, have any live connection to your layout itself. So you can do it with a simulated connection. You can do it with your layout connected. First step is really add the operations menu. So if you'll go over to the side, you will see, get this out of the way. If you'll see that I have tools, operations, settings, and then the next page I'll show you where that goes. But that's how you get into it the very first time. Another thing I should point out is there's no story here. One thing that some folks talk about is what's the story of your layout? What are you moving from place to place? I'm not even trying to do that at this level. I'm saying I have a box car in the yard. I think I should move it to this industry, this MB Samuel packaging. That movement makes sense. I'm not thinking in my mind yet what type of product is in it. Keeping it simple, very, very simple. I'm just moving the car from one place to another. I say closed cars because those are even more simple because you're not moving an open gondola and thinking there's no load inside it. So again, moving closed cars is the way to start. Let's go on to the next page here. You'll see that this is the settings page that I just talked about. I'm gonna hide that. The settings page, whoops. Settings page. Railroad name is important. Just type that in. The scale, put that in. It matters with the feet that you'll see. The operations add to the main menu. If you look over on this side, you'll see that. I've circled that. That's what you need to check. And then up at the top, kind of the first thing that you need to start thinking about is what direction does your layout go? Does it go north-south or east-west? Some layouts may be large enough and have enough complexity. You need both. To start out, I would not check both. I would check just the one that makes sense for your first few industries, and you'll see that a little bit. In my case, I unchecked the north-south and checked the east-west, and then I hit save. All these screens have a save at the bottom that you need to be aware of. Okay, so once you do that, you have this operations menu that appears in your Panel Pro or your Dakota Pro. Under that menu are basically these options. The ones we're gonna work on are all listed here in this order: locations, tracks, cars, routes, and trains. Tracks are inside a location. A location can have one or more tracks. A location is simply a place on your railroad. It's a place that has track, although it doesn't actually have to, but for simplicity, locations should have at least one track. They may have more than one track. So let's move on into look at that. Here's location. So here's the first screen where we're actually setting some data. Is we're looking at the location screen. We have this add button, and it pulls up this information. Basically, you're given the name to that location. I have an industry with a couple of tracks called BRK Kalen, so I type that in as my location name. You press location, add location. One thing to be aware of that confuses some people with JMRI ops is that all of these other fields are grayed out. You can't click on yards. You can't click on the rolling stock type. And it's kind of confusing. You have to type in the name and then press the add. And then the next screen will show you all those fields enabled. Don't ask me why that's the way it is. It's the way it was written. Okay, so let's take a look on my layout. This is one of my locations called MB Samuel Packaging. If you notice, it's a trailing point switch for westbound trains. This is the main line, and this is west. West is to the right in the photograph you're looking at. And so this is a trailing point switch for westbound trains. If you see there's a bumper here, there's no eastbound train can switch this track. I don't have a runaround. And so in a moment, you'll see where we can specify in the setup that this location should only be serviced by westbound trains. So as you're adding a location, that's one of the key things to put in. Another key thing to put in is how many cars can it hold? This location can hold 3 cars because I have 3 doors, 1, 2, 3. And there's probably enough track here for 2 more. At the moment, I'm not going to even worry about that. I'm just going to put enough places to put 3 cars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define it as one track, and 3 long enough to hold 3 cars. One day I might come back and instead of one track, I may have door 1, door 2, and door 3 as my tracks, and then be more specific. But again, that's complicating things too early, in my opinion. So we need to not do that. Keep it simple. Here's the screen where I'm going to enter that information for that location. As you see, there's a lot of car types that can be serviced. There's directions. Okay, here I've checked west. Again, we had the conversation. Westbound is the only type of car train that can service this location. So I'm checking west. I give it a name, obviously. For simplicity, I'm saying just boxcars. Obviously, that facility might could service some other things. You might have different name type boxcars, but just keep it simple to begin with. And then, very important, I say the tracks at this location are of a type of spur. Now, these are types: spur and yards. Classification is staging. Spurs are important because they change loads to empties and vice versa. So if you bring in a loaded car on a spur and you drop it, when you pick it up again, the system, JMRI, will change that to empties. At the level I'm talking about, that really doesn't matter because I'm not really looking at that. But if you're going to set it up, you can set it up correctly by saying, this is a spur, not a yard. These other two I've not even used yet, so I have no suggestions. Again, the direction was west. Locations don't have to have tracks. All of mine have a track, so I'm going to press add spur track in just a moment here and move on to the next screen. And the type of cars are box cars. So that's very important as well. So let's jump to the next slide. Okay, now this is where you arrive after you press add spur. This is entering one track. I gave it a very short name. Again, this location is MB Samuel Distribution or MB Samuel Packaging. I don't need to repeat that in the name of the track. And that'll make a little more sense when you see it in use. But just remember that you could probably put short names here. And again, this is the type of thing, don't get analysis paralysis. Just put a name, and when you start using the tool, and you say, "Oh man, I need more information about that location," then you come back and change it, and wow, bang, everything's got that new name. Okay, the length is important. I'm gonna make all my cars 50 feet long. So to fit 3 of them there, I need a length that's greater than 50 feet. So I chose 160 feet. That is not the actual length of that track by any means. It simply is the right math to let 3 50-foot cars sit there. It could be 190. If I made it 200 or 210, then I'd be in danger of trying to park 4 cars there, which is not what I want to do in this particular case. Okay, this track, I can't check that box because I've already said this entire location is west only. So it doesn't give you a choice. If you had a location that had tracks in each direction, you could specify this track is west and another track would be east. So you can hit add spur track and that'll add it to the database. Okay. So if I come back, here are the locations. In fact, this picture was taken a bit later after I put all my locations in. I went and added the yard, which is a yard. And then I added some spurs tracks for these other locations. These are all one track. And BRK Kalen is 2 tracks. So you see the 2 there, you see the total length. And again, this is really what the system is going to use to decide whether to put a car in there or not. Right now, when this picture was taken, I had 3 cars there and I had 162 feet taken up for this. The yard, I made the yard huge. This is bigger than the yard is because I want all my cars to fit in the yard regardless of the math. So I didn't make that difficult on myself. I just made that a big enough number, made each track 1,100 basically. Okay, all are spurs except the yard. The rolling stock shows, this column shows the current count of cars. And these columns, pickups and setouts, are what's pending. So at the moment, when I took this picture, I didn't have any trains in process. I didn't have anything moving. This was before I did that. So you see zeros on all of those. Let's move on to the next slide. PRK Kalen. All right. This is the trailing point switch for westbound trains. Again, I have no runaround, so I have no east trains. And it's 2 tracks. If you look at the photograph, you see there's 2 tracks. I come back later and make it fancy and have a spot for whatever this thing is and a spot for whatever this thing is and an unloading area here. I can make that harder, but for today, it's 2 tracks. All right, here's the list of cars. We're going to go to cars. Enter the cars. I guess I should have mentioned that when you look at this list, you can immediately see that I wasn't very smart. I was smart with this one. MB Samuel distribution, track 1. I got smart here. Here I said Ridgeway paint, and I called the track Ridgeway paint. That's not necessary. I don't sweat the road numbers. In N scale, it's very hard to see the road numbers. So I started by typing them in, a few. Then I kind of got lazy and just started putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the car type, if the type of car and the color and the road name are unique, then you really don't have to have the numbers. HO scale or people that get more interested in tracking individual numbers, feel free to do that. I'm keeping it simple. I'm not worried about the numbers. I'm not going to talk about kernels because I'm running out of time here. Okay, keep things basic. The one thing that's really important when you enter them is the length, because that adds up to that other, what will fit in the track. What's also important is the location. Make sure that's where it is right now. This color is important, and I said I was going to talk about the kernel. One thing that's nice about the add car window is it stays open after you add a car. So if I had 5 CSX flat cars, I could very quickly add them without having to reselect all this information. So that's really, really handy. Okay, a route. A route is a possible path that a train can follow. On my layout, which is basically a big loop, that route's pretty static. In other words, you're either going westbound through these 5 locations and come back to the yard, or you're going eastbound through these 5 locations and coming back to the yard. If you have a bigger layout, you have multiple paths, obviously the route can be part of that. You can send it to a location, have it turn around and come back. The route is very important, but in my case, I really just need 2 routes at the beginning, one going eastbound, one going westbound. We will create trains later. Those trains can be one-to-one with the route, which is where I started. I had an eastbound train and a westbound train. So I had an eastbound route and a westbound route. But you can make it so that you have an AM westbound and a PM westbound that both use the same route. So again, the route is important. It's a sequence of locations. Let's click and see what that looks like. So again, you start with a location, you start with a route. I'm adding a route. I type it, select the location, I hit add. Okay. And one thing I'm going to show you is I will include all the locations, even if there's no work. Even if I know that this train's not going to have any work at that location, or a westbound train is not going to stop at this eastbound location, I'm going to put it in just because that makes it, in my mind, clearer to myself and any operator that, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm going from point A to point B to point C. If you skip B on the paperwork or on the screen, they may think, hey, I'm in the wrong place. What happened? Help. Okay, here's the route after I'm complete. If you look, you'll see that this is the westbound route. All the trains are going westbound through here. I could go to a place, turn around and have eastbound visits as well, going back in the other direction if my layout was point to point, for example. It's not, it's a big loop. So I go from the yard through each location in the right order. In other words, I'm going westbound. Ridgeway paint really is the first one I come to going out in that direction, westbound. Then blue flame propane, then BRK colon, then blue flame propane, then MB Samuel. And then I make it back to the yard. Okay, so you set the direction knowing that JMRI is going to take care of this, picking up a car or not picking up a car based on the direction, because you set the location. For example, Ridgeway paint is eastbound only, but I put it in here as I'm going through Ridgeway paint going west on this route. The idea being that because I did that, the train will go through there, but will have no work. And that's just fine. That's perfect, because then the operator will see, hey, I'm supposed to go from the yard to Ridgeway paint first, then go from Ridgeway paint to the BRK cabin. Everything else is defaults. A lot of good information here, a lot of things you can get fancy with. You can say, hey, I want to go through these places, but I don't want to stop. I'm only going to service the mine, let's say, mate. And so I want to say no. on these locations I pass through along the way for that particular train. Other ways to do that too. Okay, trains. The most complicated screen of all in ops is this screen. It's very important. We're defining a train to go across a route. Okay, so a couple of things I suggest is check all these options, because until you know what they do, I'd rather see them and then turn them off later. Each train has a route. So if I'm defining this train, so again, I have a train called, at this point, called WCL East, and it uses a route called WCL East. So that train and that route have the same name. That's okay. You could get fancy and call this the Clipper ship or whatever name made sense to you. Later, I'm sure I'll have better names for some of these. In fact, you'll see some better names in a minute. All right. I want to cross here. There's the status. That's what's this train right at this moment. When this picture was taken, this train had 7 cars in it. Okay. Don't worry about the word partial. This is the number you care about. There were 15 possible cars it could have picked up, and it chose 7 of them. And for my layout, a 7-car train is a good train. So that's a success. I'm ready. I should be able to run that train. This one is not in a status where I can do it, but you'll see over here there's a build button. So basically, to get the train ready to go, you press the button that says build, and then it will change. So at some point, I press build on this guy, the west train, and it changed to that. Once you do that, I'll show you in a second what happened. These columns all change. This train is not out there, so it has no current location. Right now, this train is in the WCL yard. As we move along with the software I'm going to show you next, this location would change. So if you're sitting at your computer, you can see where the train is based on this location as it moves solely through ops. This is not train tracking on with some kind of detection. This is simply what ops is saying that train's current location is. The reset button is very important. Reset says, okay, I didn't get but 2 cars for this train, let's say. It said 2 out of 15. Okay, I want to reset and try that again. I'm going to change something. Maybe I forgot to set the location correctly on my direction. Let's go fix that, come back and do it again. Again, this thing's live, so changes you make, you can go right in and try something else. So hit reset, the build button comes back, you hit build again. These buttons, kind of in an odd way, change this column. So if I wanted this column to say move, I would click that button and this column would say move. You'll get used to that. Again, reset, very important. Okay, trains. So here's a train. So once I created that train, here's a little more detail about it. There's the locations it's going through because of the route. I can say don't stop at these places and uncheck them. That doesn't make any sense in my layout, but you could do that. Here are the car types that this train can service. Again, I may decide I have a tanker-only car or a tanker-only train, and I could check that box and uncheck these others. Again, for today, don't do that. Keep it simple. Don't worry about the locomotives. Don't worry about that. These are the things you need. The train needs a name. The train needs a route. That's really all you need. Okay, when I do the build, this preview button appears, and I would suggest, especially at the beginning, we're not going to use this form later, but at the beginning, press preview. The reason you press preview is you want to see what decisions, what's the traffic going to look like for this train. So if I hit preview on this train, I get this really complicated looking thing, which the reds are pickups, the blues are setouts. There's the terminate. I wish that little thing would quit jumping up over the top. Oops, sorry. Okay, so if I look at this, it's showing me the location. It says this is the train, WCL West. At the WCL yard, I'm going to pick up these cars. Then I'm going to go to Ridgeway Paint. There's no work. Remember, Ridgeway Paint's eastbound, so of course westbound shouldn't have any work. I'm going to set out some cars from my train at BRK Kalen. I'm going to go to Blue Flame Propane. I'm going to pick up a car. I'm going to leave there and go to MB Samuel. I'm going to pick up a car. And then I'm going to go back to the yard. And I'm going to drop 2 cars. And that's the whole train. So this is the entire life cycle of this WCL West train as defined at that moment. So if you look at this, here's the loop you got to get into in your mind. if I create the train and hit preview and I say, yeah, that's good work. So I've got my locations, I've got my cars created correctly, then I'm happy. If this was empty and there was no work to be done, then I go, okay, something's not right. Go hit the reset on the train, not terminate, not complete, because you don't want to say you did that work. You want to stop it, hit reset and start over. Some people, I guess the paper people, would actually print this piece of paper and hand it to your operator. Nothing wrong with that. That's not what my clinic's about. But this is a piece of paper that people use with JMRI ops to hand to the actual operator to carry with him. So he would carry it with him and he would, I guess, check the boxes with a pencil or something as he did the work. The one difference that between this and what I'm going to show you in a moment is if you use the paper, none of these changes are put in the system until you get back and say, I finished that train. So I'll make that more clear in a moment. Okay, I'll make it clear by using this tool, which is what really I'm trying to get to, which is called conductor. Okay, conductor is a tool that does one location at a time for a train. So if I want to see it on my JMRI screen, I check the action for conductor, I press conductor, and then I see this window. This window shows the very first location. It says I'm at WCL yard. I need to pick up these 5 cars, and the next location is Ridgeway Paint. So you pick up these cars, you check the boxes, and then this move button, which is at the bottom. I keep hiding it behind that little thing there. Okay, that move button down there will then update the system, tell JMRI, okay, those 5 cars are now on that train. So if you went back and looked at the train, you would see that its status has changed, and it would actually reflect that it's got cars and that it's on the way to Ridgeway Paint instead of still sitting in the yard. So this concept of the conductor is a very great feature, except at the moment, I'm doing it on the computer in this screen. And of course, I don't want to walk back to my computer each time to do this. That's not much fun. I want to be out there with my train. So I'll show you a better way to use conductor. But for right now, that conductor application, if you will, it works this way. It only shows the pickups and the setouts for the location that you're looking at. It doesn't show 3 locations down. It shows the location that you're at. When I click the move, then this is going to show no work because Ridgeway Paint for this westbound train has no work. I click it again. When I get to Ridgeway Paint, it says your next location is BRK Kalen. You need to drop 5 cars, and it will show that. So that's the way conductor works. Okay. Slight aside, JMRI has a web server that's used, maybe not used as much as it should, because there's a lot of great features in here. I'm not going to be able to show you most of them, but I advise you to crank it up, look at it, get familiar with it, and how it works. You can do this edit purposes startup to add it to start the JMRI web server. Lots of things in there, but the one thing we're looking at is this operations. You see the menu that says operations. So if I go into that menu for operations, I get a list of trains. This picture here, I kind of stepped on my picture. This picture has the one train that's defined at that moment. I click this little down thing and I can do conductor. That conductor is what we're going to look at in just a moment. There's also a manifest option, which is what I'm showing you over here. The manifest would be that option, the one I don't have circled, and it shows that same manifest. So if I'm operating, I'm at the yard and I'm thinking, okay, what's my work look like, and I want to see the whole list, I can hit manifest. Again, you can do this from your phone. You can do this from your tablet, and I'll show you that again in a moment. This is the beauty of it. You carry this with you, and it's electronic and it's dynamic, and it changes as you go. So I can see that manifest and kind of say, okay, yeah, I see where we're going, what work we're doing. We got a lot of pickups to make. All right, this is the screen that I really want to talk about, the web conductor. This is exactly the same information you saw on the conductor screen on the JMRI, except it will appear in a form that fits nicely on your phone, fits nicely on the tablet. Again, conductor shows work for the train's current location only. It shows pickups and setups only, if there's any for that location. On a tablet, this is nice. It fits very well. I've got some screenshots. To make it operate, you basically click the all button, and it says, okay, I did all that work. I picked up those 5 cars. and then you have the move button lights up. When you make it a ramp, so that's what this part of the screen looks like. That move to Ridgeway Paint would take us there. It would right then it immediately updates JMRI with the train location and the cars. So that train now has 5 cars on it instead of 0. When I get to another location, okay, I have a different screen. This is a screen, a little smaller version of it that fits on the phone, but it's the exact same place. You're going to the same place. It says, "What am I doing at the yard?" But obviously, this picture was taken when I made it back. So I checked my setouts. Okay, I've got all 3 of these ready to go. You hit terminate, and you've terminated. The key is this is work you're doing on your computer, not on your computer screen, but on your phone or on your tablet. So you can do it on the railroad as you're walking around. Okay, so you're probably thinking, how do you do all that? How do you run the train and have the paperwork? You got 4 different choices here, and you probably can think of some others on your own. One that I've done with my brother, my son-in-law, is 2 devices. He likes to run the trains. I like to be the conductor. So I have my phone out and I do the conductor screen on my phone. He has his phone out and he uses Engine Driver to actually run the train. And I tell him, okay, pick up this car. He picks it up. I check it on the screen. So I'm using, one device to to update the system and do the work, and he's using another device to do that. That other device doesn't have to be a phone. There's people that still use those old hardware throttles with the knobs and the buttons and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to do that as well for the engineer. So that's one choice. Another choice is you can have one device with 2 screens, throttle on one screen and then conductor on another. In Engine Driver, there's a setting that lets you rotate the screen. If you rotate your phone, it changes the view from the throttle page to show you the web page, which would be where the conductor will be showing up. So you can just turn your phone, do the paperwork, turn it back, and run the train. Turn your phone, do the paperwork, turn it back, and run the train. There's also a menu that lets you hop between those 2. Okay. There's also a way, and I'll show you a screenshot of this in a moment, where you can have one device and you can split the screen. Throttle at the top, the conductor web page at the bottom. Hopefully, if I have time, I'll have a live demo of that. All right. Then there's what I really love to do, which is use the gamepad. And that way I can use my phone for the conductor, and then I can run the train with the gamepad hanging on a lanyard around my neck. It's very light, very easy to operate. To me, that's the way to go. But all of these work perfectly well and allow you to take your paperwork electronic. That's the goal. Is you're not carrying around a piece of paper to keep up with it. You're doing it on the screen. The one device with 2 screens lets you do the throttle and the paperwork all in the same spot, and it's really pretty handy if you get to that. So let's look at some examples. So here's an example of the split screen. The first example to the left, the throttle is across the top, as you can see, and at the bottom I have the location. I'm sitting at Ridgeway Paint. I've got two pickups, C&O blue box car and the CSX blue box cars. I got 2 blue box cars sitting at Ridgeway Paint that I need to pick up. When I pick that up, I check that box and I hit the move. And again, at the top of the screen is the throttle control. So I'm driving the train, and on the exact same screen, I'm keeping track of where I'm going and why I'm going there and what work I'm doing. The picture in the middle is basically just from a tablet. I kind of shrunk it down a little bit, but you have a lot more room on a tablet. Bigger, more to keep up with your hand, but of course it's also a little easier to see, perhaps. But again, I find the view on the phone pretty easy to read myself, particularly if you pick some of the better themes that allow the high contrast. Okay, so again, I said this before. If you have 2 operators, one operator uses this split screen, or you can use the auto web, and basically it will be full screen. And when you turn it, it changes. Hopefully I'll get a live demo of that in a second. Okay, there's the preferences to set up. I'm not going to talk much about that, but there is a way that you have to tell Engine Driver what page you want to go to first, so you're not constantly clicking to go through the menu each time. So you can tell it, hey, I want the throttle web view, that split screen, I want it to start with this path, operations trains. Conversely, I want to have the full page. Well, it's the same path, but it's just a different preference. They can be the same page, they can be two different things, or you can do the auto web, as we said. Okay. All right, web browsers. You do not have to be inside Engine Driver to use the web browser. If you have a tablet and you are going to, somebody's going to run the train with a regular throttle, and you just want to pull up conductor, you just put in the address. That address looks like that on your home network. That's the address to my Raspberry Pi, which happens to be where this stuff's running. And I typed it in. The rest of that is operations train, but you can get it to it from that little menu button there as well. So basically just drive into the menu and save that path as a shortcut, and you can always go right back to it. You do not, this also works inside Engine Driver, but Engine Driver is not required. So you could use your iPad, your Apple iPad, and go to that exact same location, and the browser works fine. Okay, live demo. I do have time for a very short live demo. Okay, there's my Engine Driver throttle screen. This is the full screen version of it. Some of you are probably familiar with this. I hit select, I pick a train, I got my locomotive. Okay, I run my train out and do some back and forth until I get to where I want, and I'm got to turn the light. I'm ready to pick up my cars. I've connected up to my cars, operating it that way. So I want to rotate this. And it didn't do it. Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. This is called being in too big a hurry to allow your screen to catch up. This is not my actual phone. This is an emulator. So there's a little bit of slowness here. Okay, so when I turned the phone, you saw that it went from the full screen throttle. Now it's changed to this page, operations trains, and I have my train. So I'm going to pick this train. I'm going to hit conductor. Okay, and then there's my train. There's my, scoot that up a little bit. There's my work. Again, as I said, you can check these boxes as you do each car. You could do all by clicking that button. Okay, I'm ready to move on. I've got that done. I hit move to NB Samuel packaging. Okay, now I'm going to rotate the phone back to my throttle page. Trust me, it's much faster on the real phone instead of the simulation. But that's it. So now I drive my train to NB Samuel. I get there. I say, okay, what work do I have at NB Samuel? I back up so I can see it. Probably have no work. Yeah, I have no work at NB Samuel. So I can check that, move on, move to blue flame. Very quickly, I'm going to change the preference here so that we can do the split screen, and you'll see them both. Bottom. That's the change I need to make there. Okay. Back up. Okay. Same thing. Since this is the first time I've been in there, I need to go find my train again. But the train has moved. So when I go into this page, now I'm in the right place. So now I've got them on the same screen. So I can move to this. Obviously, this is pretty handy here. I can move my throttle like that. I can say, okay, I'm ready. I'm finished this work. Didn't have any work there. I'm back to the yard. I do the check boxes. I'm gonna set those out on track 3 and 4. And I hit terminate. Okay, and now I've updated the train. So now I can run the train with the top half of the screen, and I can do the bottom half of the screen for the conductor. And so that is our live demo. Recap. Start very simple. Just use these things. Trains, remember that reset's your friend. Preview, reset until you get one you like. Different ways to use conductor on your phone or your tablet. Important to remember conductor updates as soon as you press move or terminate, so you take that action. The database is updated. If there was another train that needed that car and it was built and coming behind you, it could pick up that car even though your train hasn't finished its entire route yet. It's very handy for doing very dynamic things that I'm not trying to do yet. I'm running one train at a time. I advise you to do that as well. Again, you can see the current location on conductor. One question that there's one guy on the JMRI board that every time conductor gets mentioned, he goes, well, can you fix problems inside that app? No, you can't fix problems inside that app. What you can do is go back to JMRI. When you find a car that's not there, make the change in JMRI, and then go back and refresh the conductor window. That car is now taken off your train and no longer necessary to move. But trying to fit all that on that little small screen is kind of tricky. So we don't try to do that yet. But you can make that change and refresh it. If you have problems with JMRI ops not moving a car, the detailed build report's your friend. Things I'm going to do, next step for me is I'm going to merge propane and BRK. I'm going to add more cars. I'm going to create a back to the yard route so I can clean off my whole layout while I'm working on it. I'm going to adjust the track lengths. Perfect couplers and trackage is a goal. Should be a goal for you too. Add more industries. And then I believe that's, I'm not going to talk about ED improvements. Okay, and that is the end of my presentation.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. We're having a few issues here with technology not being our friend today, but we've gone through with it and we've recorded it, so we'll be definitely trying to get this up at a later date. But I'm not sure if there's a great deal of questions out there, but I do have one that's kind of along the lines of where I'm going with my layout is, can you explain a little bit of how what you've just gone through here can work with remote operations?
The remote operations, yeah, I've seen some of the clinics that people have done where they're using cameras and using dispatcher to know where the trains are. I'm not sure how you would switch cars into a industry with remote operations. Certainly could have a remote dispatcher that was in charge of. The remote dispatcher could be in charge of building the trains, assigning the trains to the local switch guys. Somebody's got to put their finger between the two cars and uncouple. Something's got to happen that touches that. But as far as the system goes, the electronics go, sure, you could pull up the same engine driver screen anywhere. In fact, the actual layout that I was doing in my demo is in my cloud server. It's not even in my house. It's on the internet, and my device, if you will, is here sitting at my desk, or could be in my hand. So the technology is there to route that traffic. Very straightforward. I've seen some people talk about how to do that. Basically, you just have to have a way to expose your JMRI system to the internet, which I've already taken that step. And then once you do that, that has an address. You put that address in your engine driver or your tablet, and then you pull it up. All of these are web technologies that we're using, either inside your local home network or across the internet. So again, I don't know how I could switch my layout remotely because I'm have to be hands-on with the actual switching. If someone's just running a train, sure, you could do that with something like dispatcher. My eventual goal on my layout is to have the one main line running automatic and the other main line, the inside main line where all my industries are, be switched, and I can use JMRI's dispatcher for that. JMRI's tool that does the automated running. That automated running works fine on my layout. When I put it back together, I've now taken it apart and I'm building 2 new sections, 3 new sections. So a little tough to do that. So not really quite the answer to your question there, Brad, but it is it's worth investigating. It's worth chasing. So.
It's definitely is. A couple of us here over at NRMRX have done a few remote ops, and I've gone down that same path. I'm actually using a Raspberry Pi with one of your images, and I've had Gordy log in and pretty much do that. So it is achievable, and it's something of the future, I dare say, that we'll all start to see. So I'm not sure if you've got any questions there, Dave.
I have one real quick, if we've got a minute or two. Tell me a little bit about the game pads. That intrigues me. I've seen people use them, but I'm not sure exactly how that plays.
Okay, what it is, Dave, is it's a Bluetooth connection to the phone. And so basically it replaces the glass screen, the controls for moving the train. As you saw, I was moving the slider up and down. Instead of moving that slider, you would use the gamepad and push the joystick up and down. The thing that's nice about it is because it's so light, and it's they're $5 or $6 a piece. You put it on a lanyard, you hang it around your neck, and if you get ready to do some switching or uncouple a car, you just let go, and it falls against you. You try to do that with your $300 proto throttle. I think you get a bruise when it swings and slams into you. This thing doesn't do that. But the idea here is that it's talking through the phone. And so the direction and the speed and those 4 buttons that you saw in the picture are actually connected directly to functions in through Engine Driver. Engine Driver has some settings for that. So it's talking Bluetooth to your phone. Before I was doing the operation stuff, I would put my phone back in the holster and just carry it around with me and use the joystick to control the train. Now, if I did this with the conductor, I would probably have the phone out where I could see the full screen conductor and use the joystick to run the train back and forth. It's very intuitive once you set the settings well. In other words, I put notches in my throttle, so I'm not having to bump it up 25 times to go 25 miles an hour or whatever that's supposed to represent. I set my settings for 1 through 10, and I change the gamepad. Each time I bump it, it changes at 1. So that's 10%. That's 20%. If I want to stop, I pull it back 10%, 20%, 20%, 10%, 0. So that works pretty well. It's well worth doing. It takes a moment or two to get used to it and set it up. But once you've paired it up with your phone and get used to doing it, it's hard to run it the old way. One of the complaints of Engine Driver in these glass devices is I don't have any tactile feedback. I can't feel the knob. Well, there's a joystick. You can feel the joystick, and literally I bump it twice and it's going 20% of the speed. I bump it down, I stop it. I bump it backwards, I'm backing up. That's where.
And that's one of the complaints I hear is I don't have a knob. I have no
Right.
technical sense.
Right. So that's a way that works very well to get past that. And yet it's still very cheap and very light. You can use a $20 phone or your wife's old phone and $6 gamepad, and you're good to go. So
Very cool.
okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys.